They say some loves are meant to be remembered, yet never lived. But what happens when a single choice, a single forbidden touch, changes everything? In a quiet town where appearances mattered more than truth, Emma and Adrian's eyes met across a crowded library, and in that fleeting glance, a universe of secrets was born. Nobody knew the storm that was about to consume them, a passion that would burn brighter than their consciences could withstand, and leave scars that time could never heal. What drove two souls to risk everything for a love society forbade, and what price would they ultimately pay for following desire instead of reason? Disclaimer: this is a dramatic content for awareness and discussion only. In the spring of 2017, in the small yet bustling town of Willowbrook, Emma, a young librarian with a penchant for solitude, discovered herself drawn to Adrian, a visiting historian whose charm masked a darker intensity. At first, it was casual conversations about dusty books and rare manuscripts that ignited a spark neither of them expected. But beneath the surface, both carried burdens, secrets, regrets, and desires that the world would never approve of. Their lives, previously orderly and predictable, began to fracture the moment Adrian's hand brushed against hers over a fragile antique volume. That simple gesture was more than contact. It was an invitation into a forbidden world. As days turned into weeks, Emma found herself walking a perilous line. Every stolen glance in the dim corners of the library, every whispered conversation, every accidental touch became a dance of desire and self-recrimination. She questioned herself constantly. Was she losing control, or was Adrian unraveling a part of her she had long hidden? Adrian, on the other hand, was equally ensnared. He had traveled extensively, seen countless faces, yet no one ever penetrated his carefully constructed walls like Emma did. He admired her caution, her intellect, her subtle strength, but he also craved her surrender. "We can't. We shouldn't," he muttered one evening as shadows from the rain-streaked windows fell across the bookshelves. But every time he said it, his resolve crumbled further. Their meetings, though brief and veiled in secrecy, became the most essential parts of their days, as if life itself demanded they ignore rules and reason. Soon, the risk of discovery became a thrilling obsession. Emma would lie awake at night, wondering who might be watching from the darkened streets outside her apartment. Adrian would linger too long in her doorway, hesitant to leave, both of them acutely aware that one misstep could shatter everything. The tension between right and forbidden was unbearable, yet intoxicating. Each encounter was fraught with danger, and yet each one deepened the emotional bond that neither wanted to acknowledge openly. Their love, though unspoken, was becoming impossible to ignore. Friends began to notice subtle changes, lingering glances, conversations that never seemed to end, a quiet intensity that hovered like an invisible storm around them. Emma found herself questioning morality against desire, and Adrian battled with his own conscience. How could two people navigate a connection that was so clearly forbidden? Could passion ever justify the betrayal of societal norms and personal ethics? Or was every stolen moment a step closer to irreversible heartbreak? Every chapter of their shared time felt like a novel written in secrecy, full of longing, hidden smiles, and suppressed confessions. Emma's heart ached with the thrill of what she shouldn't feel, and Adrian's soul burned with the knowledge that one revelation could ruin both of their lives. In these delicate, stolen moments, they glimpsed a world beyond rules and reason, a world where only desire mattered. But desire, as they would soon learn, carries consequences more unforgiving than love itself. And yet, just when they believed they had mastered the delicate balance between secrecy and indulgence, the first ripple of exposure crept into their world. A note misplaced, a friend's suspicion, a fleeting shadow on a rain-soaked street. It was enough to threaten everything. Emma's mind raced. Could their love survive scrutiny, judgment, and the harsh gaze of the world outside their sanctuary? Or would every passion-filled secret become a memory buried in regret before it could truly bloom? If this story has touched you so far, kindly comment, "I felt the pull." Share this story with all those who need to hear it. Subscribe to Taboo Romance Stories TVC and follow for more real-life, emotional, and suspenseful tales of forbidden love. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell, because the next chapter will reveal the dangerous choices Emma and Adrian must make, and the secret that could either bind them forever or tear them apart. The storm that had quietly begun in the corners of Willowbrook now surged with force. Emma and Adrian found themselves entwined in a web of desire that grew harder to resist with every passing day. Meetings once fleeting had turned into clandestine afternoons, stolen evenings that blurred the line between right and wrong. Each encounter left Emma breathless, caught between the intoxicating pull of Adrian's presence and the gnawing weight of guilt that followed her into the quiet of her apartment. She would often stare at her reflection late at night, tracing the invisible marks of tension and longing across her own face, asking herself why something so beautiful could feel so dangerous. Adrian's eyes were constantly searching hers, reading the conflict he knew mirrored his own. He spoke rarely of the consequences. Instead, he let their hands linger longer than propriety allowed, letting their fingers intertwine in secret corners where no one could see. "Emma," he murmured one evening, as shadows danced along the library walls. "Every time we meet like this, I feel alive in a way I never have before. But it terrifies me, because I know it shouldn't be this way." Emma could barely form a response, for her chest ached with the same fear and longing. Their stolen touches, the electric tension in a simple brush of fingers, were reminders that the world outside their bubble demanded restraint, yet their hearts refused to obey. With every secret rendezvous, the stakes escalated. Text messages disguised as innocuous chatter carried hidden meanings. Meeting plans were hidden within mundane details, and each passing friend or passerby could become an unwitting threat. Emma found herself living in a constant state of heightened awareness, her pulse quickening at the faintest noise or unexpected knock. Every laugh shared with Adrian, every whispered confession of longing, felt like a tiny rebellion against a society that would never understand their connection. The thrill of danger intertwined seamlessly with the raw exhilaration of closeness, creating a potent cocktail of excitement and fear. Yet the emotional consequences began to weigh heavily. Emma's mind was constantly spinning, her conscience whispering warnings she could no longer silence. She questioned her morality and wondered how desire had led her down this perilous path. "What are we doing to ourselves?" she asked once, voice barely audible above the hum of the winter wind outside. Adrian's response was measured yet tinged with vulnerability. "We're living, Emma, but living comes with risk. And maybe, for the first time, the risk feels worth it." Their connection deepened not only because of passion, but because of the shared acknowledgement of forbidden longing, the intimacy born of vulnerability and secrecy. The walls of their small town seemed to close in around them. Friends whispered, colleagues observed with subtle suspicion, and the world appeared ready to expose their hidden world. Every day was a test of wit, courage, and emotional endurance. Emma began to notice the subtle signs of danger. Adrian's restless glances when someone entered the library, the sudden withdrawal when a neighbor's gaze lingered too long, the tiny signs that their secret was being noticed. Yet despite this, neither could stop. Each encounter only solidified the bond, and each near discovery heightened the intensity of every touch, every whispered word, every forbidden kiss hidden behind bookshelves and closed doors. But passion, as intoxicating as it was, began to reveal its darker side. Emotional turmoil seeped into moments that once brought joy. Emma's mind became a battlefield of guilt and desire, where joy was tainted by fear and longing was shadowed by the threat of exposure. Adrian, too, struggled. His heart ached as he realized that the more he gave himself to this forbidden love, the higher the potential cost. They were caught in a dangerous cycle. The thrill of secrecy drew them together, while the looming threat of discovery threatened to tear them apart. Each moment became both a treasure and a torment, leaving them questioning whether passion was worth the inevitable heartbreak. The tension reached its peak during one fateful night in early May 2017. Emma and Adrian had arranged a secret meeting at the edge of the Willowbrook River, a place few ever wandered after dark. The moonlight glimmered across the water, and the cool air brushed against their skin as they faced each other, hearts pounding. Words were unnecessary. The longing in their eyes conveyed a universe of emotion. Yet beneath the romantic veneer lay an undeniable fear. A single passerby, a stray glance from a distant neighbor could unravel everything. And as the wind whispered secrets through the trees, both realized that the thin veil of privacy they had relied on was starting to fray. And then, as if fate itself had decided to intervene, a shadow flickered at the edge of their sanctuary. Emma froze, adrenaline spiking, and Adrian's protective instinct surged. Their eyes met, wide with fear and desire, knowing that this encounter might be their last without consequences. Was their love strong enough to survive the looming revelation? Or would this fleeting moment of stolen passion be the spark that set their entire carefully hidden world ablaze? If this story has gripped your heart so far, comment, "I'm drawn in." Share this story with those who need to feel the tension of forbidden desire. Subscribe to Taboo Romance Stories TVC and turn on the notification bell. The next chapter will reveal the consequences of choices made in shadows and the painful truth of love that defies rules. But can it survive exposure? The days that followed the riverside encounter were shrouded in a heavy tension neither Emma nor Adrian could shake. The shadow that had appeared lingered in their minds, a symbol of the fragile boundary between secrecy and exposure. Every glance from a stranger, every whispered conversation that drifted into the wrong ears seemed to carry hidden warnings. The small town of Willowbrook, with its quiet streets and watchful neighbors, suddenly felt suffocating. Emma found herself constantly scanning the horizon, anticipating the moment when their hidden world might unravel. And yet, despite the fear, the pull toward Adrian was irresistible. Their meetings became even more clandestine. Nights were chosen with precision. Locations shifted like pieces on a chessboard, and even the smallest touch carried a mixture of fear and electric desire. Adrian would often hold Emma close under the cover of darkness, whispering reassurances that only intensified the ache in her chest. "We can't control the world, Emma," he murmured one night as they hid in the old greenhouse behind his family's estate. "All we can do is hold on to what we have while we can." Every word felt like both a comfort and a warning, reminding her that each stolen moment came at a price. But the more they tried to protect their love, the more the consequences of their actions began to creep in. Rumors began to spread, subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable to those living in secrecy. Emma noticed the change first in her closest friends, who seemed hesitant, their smiles tinged with doubt. Adrian's colleagues began to whisper, their friendly banter now carrying hints of suspicion. Each interaction became a test of patience, wit, and emotional endurance, leaving Emma to question whether the love she had found was worth the mounting tension. In the quiet moments alone, Emma's mind would wander to what-ifs and could-bes. What if they were discovered? What if their families learned of the secret nights and whispered promises? The guilt began to gnaw at her heart, but it was always countered by the memory of Adrian's touch, the warmth of his hands, the fire in his eyes when he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Every kiss, every whisper, every heartbeat shared in secret became both an addiction and a torment. The duality of desire and danger created a tension that neither could escape, and yet neither could walk away. One particularly stormy night, The intensity of their connection collided with the reality of their situation. Rain poured relentlessly, drumming against the roof of the tiny cabin where they had sought refuge. Outside, the world seemed to dissolve into chaos, a mirror of the turmoil inside their hearts. Inside, they clung to each other, words unnecessary as the intensity of their emotions spoke volumes. And yet, even in the height of passion, fear lurked. Every flash of lightning illuminated the possibility of exposure, every clap of thunder a reminder of the danger waiting just beyond the walls. The emotional stakes were compounded by the growing complexity of their lives. Emma's family, unaware of the depth of her secret, began planning her future in ways that seemed to mock the freedom she had tasted with Adrian. Social obligations, work commitments, and community expectations collided with the clandestine hours they cherished. Adrian, too, struggled with his own demons, the weight of responsibility pressing against the need for intimacy. They were caught between love and obligation, passion and propriety, and the line between bliss and ruin was razor thin. Then came the moment that neither could have foreseen. A photograph, taken in secret during one of their meetings, appeared in the hands of someone who should never have seen it. The image captured the stolen closeness, the intensity of their connection, and the vulnerability that had been hidden so carefully. Emma's heart sank as she realized that the delicate web of secrecy they had built was beginning to unravel. Adrian's hand gripped hers tightly as they stared at the evidence, their eyes reflecting panic, anger, and heartbreak. The reality of exposure loomed, threatening not just their love, but everything they held dear. Could a love this intense survive the judgment of the world? Could the fire of passion withstand the cold scrutiny of those who would condemn it? Emma and Adrian were now at a crossroads, where every choice carried immense consequences, and the path forward was anything but clear. Their story, forged in secrecy and desire, was about to be tested in ways neither had imagined. If this story has gripped your heart so far, comment, "I feel the tension." Share this story with anyone who understands the thrill and danger of forbidden love. Subscribe to Taboo Romance Stories TVC and turn on the notification bell. The next part will reveal whether love forged in shadows can endure the harsh light of truth, or if the consequences of passion will finally shatter their world. The revelation of the photograph shattered the fragile cocoon Emma and Adrian had built around their love. What had been a private sanctuary, a world where only the intensity of their feelings mattered, now felt exposed and vulnerable. The small town of Willowbrook, with its quiet streets and watchful neighbors, seemed to press down on them, reminding them that secrecy could no longer shield them. Every glance, every whisper from friends or strangers became a reminder that the delicate thread of forbidden desire was fraying, and the consequences of passion were about to crash down like a storm. Adrian refused to let fear dominate them, but even his confidence was tested. "We can face this together," he whispered, holding Emma close in the dim light of the cabin. "No one can take what we've shared away from us." Yet, as much as his words reassured her, the reality of the situation was impossible to ignore. Their love, intense and unyielding, had already ignited whispers and judgments that could not be easily silenced. Friends and family would soon confront them. Societal expectations would demand accountability, and the guilt of clandestine indulgence weighed heavily on both of their hearts. The days that followed were tense and fragile. Every step outside the cabin felt like stepping onto a battlefield. Emma and Adrian moved through the town carefully, aware of prying eyes and the invisible currents of suspicion that now surrounded them. Each conversation, each encounter was loaded with unspoken questions. Had anyone else seen the photograph? Would it spread further? Could their love survive the scrutiny of those who would judge it without understanding? The fear of exposure mixed with their passion, creating a cocktail of tension that neither could escape. Yet amid the pressure, their connection burned brighter than ever. In private moments, they clung to each other, desperate to find solace in the warmth of their love. Nights were spent whispering confessions and promises, and mornings were filled with the quiet reassurance of shared glances. Every touch carried a history of stolen moments and secret desires, and every kiss was both a rebellion and a salvation. The danger that had once heightened their excitement now tempered it with a bittersweet edge, reminding them that love and risk were irrevocably intertwined. The confrontation came sooner than they expected. Friends, family, and neighbors began asking pointed questions, piecing together fragments of the truth. Emma's parents, once oblivious, demanded answers, and the photograph became the undeniable evidence of a love they considered unacceptable. Adrian faced his own reckoning, dealing with both personal guilt and the weight of public scrutiny. Yet, through every accusation and whisper, he remained steadfast, determined to protect the love he shared with Emma, even if it meant facing judgment, anger, or heartbreak. In the heart of the storm, Emma made a choice. She could retreat into safety and abandon the love that had consumed her, or she could embrace the consequences and fight for the bond that had become her life's most powerful force. "I won't let fear dictate my heart," she said one night, her voice steady despite the tears that threatened to fall. "If this love is wrong in their eyes, then let it be. But it is ours, and I won't deny it." Adrian's eyes shone with a mixture of pride, relief, and renewed passion, knowing that their love had survived the harshest of tests. Not because the world accepted it, but because they had chosen it, fully and without reservation. The weeks that followed were not without struggle. Gossip and judgment continued to ripple through their community, and not all consequences could be avoided. Careers, friendships, and reputations were tested. Yet Emma and Adrian learned the deepest lesson of all. Love that is genuine and chosen freely carries its own resilience. Their story, forged in secrecy and tempered by adversity, became a testament to the power of desire, courage, and emotional truth. Even when society disapproved, even when mistakes were made, the bond between two hearts committed to each other could endure, adapt, and grow stronger. As the sun set over Willowbrook, casting a golden glow across the town's quiet streets, Emma and Adrian walked hand in hand, knowing that every stolen glance, every forbidden touch, and every whispered promise had led them to this moment of clarity. The world outside might never fully understand their love, but that did not diminish its intensity. They had faced exposure, fear, and regret, and emerged with a bond stronger than the judgments surrounding them. Could love born in secrecy survive the harsh scrutiny of reality? Could the fire of forbidden desire withstand the weight of regret and judgment? These questions linger, challenging viewers to consider the choices we make when the heart defies reason. If this story has moved you, comment, "I feel the fire." Share it with those who understand the power of forbidden love, and subscribe to Taboo Romance Stories TVC. Turn on the notification bell for more gripping, emotional, and heart-wrenching tales that explore the boundaries of desire, conscience, and courage. This is Taboo Romance Stories TVC, forbidden romance stories told like never before. Stay with us for more gripping tales of passion, desire, and heartbreak that defy the rules of love and life.